Hey, friends, grab a seat, get comfy, because I've got something big to share with you today. Picture this. You're standing at a crossroads, dust kicking up around your feet. On one side, there's everything you've ever chased. Money piling up, success glowing like a neon sign, people clapping for you. A life so cozy you never want to leave it. On the other side, there's a cross, rough, heavy, jagged with splinters, whispering a challenge that could cost you everything. Which way do you turn? Be honest, most of us would freeze, maybe even bolt toward the easy path. I know I've been tempted to, but here's the twist. Someone already stood at that crossroads for us. 2,000 years ago, Jesus picked up a cross so brutal, so humiliating, it rewrote the rules of love. And now, he's looking at you and me, saying, your turn. Don't tune out yet. This isn't just some dusty old tale or a preacher's rant. This is about us, right here, right now, in the mess of our lives. Stick with me, because by the time we're done, you'll see why the cross isn't just a symbol on a wall. It's a road we're called to walk. Let's dive in. Let's start with Jesus. Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. A man beaten so bad his back looks like raw meat. Whips laced with shards of bone and metal tearing into him, over and over. They shove a crown of thorns onto his head, sharp spikes digging into his scalp, blood streaking down his face like tears. Then the nails, cold, heavy iron spikes, hammered through his wrists and feet, pinning him to a wooden beam. Every breath he takes is a fight. His body sags against those wounds, chest heaving, pain shooting through him. The Romans were pros at this. Crucifixion wasn't just death. It was torture, slow and public, designed to break you. And the crowd? They're not weeping. They're jeering, spitting, shouting, "Hey, if you're the Son of God, prove it. Come down." He could have. Think about that. He had the power to snap his fingers and walk away. But he didn't. Why? Because of you. Because of me. That's the cross we've all heard about. But let's not rush through it. It wasn't a quick heroic moment. It was a choice, planned by God, carried out with a love we can't even wrap our heads around. I'm not here to just parrot the Bible at you. You can crack it open yourself anytime. I want us to sit with this. What kind of love says, "I'll take the pain so you don't have to"? What kind of strength looks at a way out and says, "No, I'm staying"? This wasn't some random tragedy. It was on purpose, foretold way back in the Old Testament, like in Isaiah 53, where it says, "He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities." Jesus knew what was coming, and he still went through with it. That hits me hard. I mean, how often do we dodge the smallest inconveniences, traffic, a tough conversation, while he took on that? It's not just a story from 2,000 years ago. It's a mirror slapping us in the face today. So, let's get real. What does the cross mean to you? When you see a cross, maybe dangling on a necklace, carved into a church pew, tattooed on someone's arm, what do you feel? For some, it's just bling, a cool accessory. For others, it's a free ticket to heaven. Say a prayer, you're good. But Jesus didn't see it that way. He dropped a bombshell in Matthew 10, verse 38. "Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me." Ouch. That's not a warm, fuzzy invite. It's a challenge with teeth. The cross isn't just something he carried. It's something he hands us. Not a literal chunk of wood, thank goodness, but a call to live different. To sacrifice stuff. To obey even when it stings. To love when it's the last thing we want to do. I've wrestled with this big time. Growing up, I thought following Jesus was a checklist. Pray once, hit church on Easter, call it a day. But the older I get, the more I see it's not that neat. It's not a cozy blanket faith where I just feel good and move on. It might mean losing friends who don't get it, scrapping plans I've obsessed over, letting go of dreams I've hugged tight. And yeah, that scares me silly. Does it scare you? Let's be real, nobody's fist pumping. Yay, a cross. Sign me up. It's heavy. It's messy. But maybe that's where the good stuff hides, in the struggle and the grit. What do you think? Does that ring true for you? Shout it out if it does. To make this stick, let's talk about some people I've come across who've lived this out. They're not saints or superheroes, just regular folks like us, staring down hard choices. First up, Sarah. I knew her back in my old neighborhood. A single mom juggling 2 jobs to keep her kids fed. Her real passion, though? Volunteering at a shelter for abused women. She'd spend hours there, listening, helping, being a rock for people who'd been shattered. One day, her boss dangled a promotion, better pay, benefits, a lifeline for her family. But here's the catch. It meant moving across the country, ditching the shelter. Sarah prayed about it for weeks, wrestling with it. She could have taken the money. Lord knows she needed it. Her fridge was half empty most days. But she felt God nudging her to stay, to keep serving those women who had nobody else. So she turned it down. Her friends flipped out. Sarah, you're throwing your future away. But she looked at me one day, eyes steady, and said, if Jesus gave up everything for me, I can give up something for him. She's still at that shelter, and the lives she's touched? You can't count him. That's a cross she picked up, putting others over herself. What would you have done there? Think about it. Then there's Michael. I stumbled across his story online, a tech whiz, young, sharp, climbing the ladder fast. He was at this hotshot company, the kind where you're set for life by 40. But things got shady. His bosses started cutting corners, exploiting workers overseas, chasing profit over people. Michael could have stayed quiet, kept raking in the cash. Most would. Instead, he spoke up, risked his gig, and when they wouldn't change, he walked away. Quit cold. Lost his swanky apartment, his status, the whole dream. Now he's at a nonprofit, making a fraction of what he used to. I messaged him once, curious, and he wrote back, the cross isn't comfy, it's costly, but it's worth it. That stuck with me. He chose right over riches. Could you do that? I'm not sure I could, honest truth. And then there's Amina, a refugee I heard about through a friend's mission trip. She grew up Muslim in a war-torn country, where faith was life or death. Someone slipped her a Bible, and it flipped her world. She found Jesus, but it wasn't safe. Converting meant her family disowned her. Neighbors turned hostile, threatening her life. She fled with nothing but a cross necklace, not for fashion, but as a lifeline, a reminder of what she'd paid. She ended up in a new country, starting from zero, sharing her faith with anyone who'd listen. My friend asked her why, and she said, Jesus carried his cross for me. I'll carry mine for him, no matter where it takes me. That's grit I can't even fathom. What's the biggest risk you've taken for what you believe? Toss that out. Let's hear it. These stories, they hit me like a truck. Sarah, Michael, Amina, they didn't just nod at Jesus from the sidelines. They stepped up, took the hard road, carried their crosses when it would have been way easier to bail. So what about us? What's our cross? Let's chew on that for a sec. Anyone got a thought? Speak up. Here's what I'm pulling from this so far. First, the cross isn't a decoration, it's a decision. Jesus didn't die so we could cruise through life. He died to show us how to live with purpose, guts, fire. Second, carrying a cross means letting go, Maybe it's a job, a relationship, a habit you love that's not God's best for you. Third, it's about changing inside out. If we're following Jesus, people should see it, not in loud preaching, but in quiet love, humility, peace that doesn't make sense. For me, this is a gut check. I've chased money, approval, control, way more than I want to admit. I've got this memory. Years back, I stayed late at work chasing a bonus, missing my kids' school play. I told myself it was for them, but really, it was for me. The cross pulls me back from that. None of that junk lasts. Jesus does. So I'm asking myself, and you, what are we holding on to that's keeping us from him? What's our cross to carry? Don't just sit there. Say something if it's hitting you.